Lance, did you put your clothes back on?
Negatory.
What do I have to put my clothes back on for?
Shut up and sit down.
So red flag is a small thing you notice in someone else's behavior that's symptomatic of a bigger problem. The trouble is that oftentimes a red flag can be hard to pick up on because red flags aren't only what someone does, they can also be what they don't do. A low-tier red flag is something that's probably bad, but not necessarily a complete deal breaker. Mid-tier red flags. These are a bit more serious and are usually harder to overcome or talk about.
You are listening to the Dial Podcast with Matt Legrand, Evan Price, Lance Hepler, and Jake Von Doing. That is a giant red flag, but don't worry, I won't tell anyone.
Alright, next is high-tier red flags. These are the ones that are complete deal breakers and are pretty much always non-negotiable. Assuming you start with a blank white flag, at the lowest level we have red and white flags, which are just small quirks or inconsistencies that aren't bad, just kind of weird. Things like they don't lick the yogurt off the lid, they use Internet Explorer, they hold the door open for you as soon as they see you park your car, or they're apologetic even if something is your fault. Basically, if it can be explained with, oh, Canadian.
Hi, and welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I'm Jake Von Doing, and I'm here with Matt Legrand.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? You guys are looking fantastic today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
To his left, Evan Price.
I'm like mid-bite of... Does anybody have a preference here on Chex Mix or Gordettos? This is a big debate, actually, in our house.
I think Chex Mix is more like the tradition. Like, this is like stepping it up another level.
No.
That's fancy.
Gordettos has been around since 1932.
It's been around since 1932. But you're probably paying 3 times as much as you would for Chex Mix.
It's so worth it, though. It's
Is
so
it?
worth it.
I don't know.
I'm not sure if it's that much more expensive. Chex Mix has gotten a little bit too cheeky with their flavors.
Too hoity-toity?
Yeah, so I got to go back to Gordettos. Classic Italian snack mix.
No, it's because they're
the
Italian.
brown crispy things.
It's because they're Italian.
I don't even know what the things are outside the pretzel.
No one does.
Hard pass on both.
What's everybody drinking? We should ask, what's everybody eating right now?
I'm sipping on Aqua Fizz, home brew.
Chewing on some coffee.
Wow.
Chewing on some coffee.
Yep.
I just had a V8.
This is the first time that
I
none
thought
of us
Lance
have
was going
had
to be
like.
drinking his own pee because he's stuck in the middle of nowhere right now, and apparently has a flat. So.
This is the first time that none of us have like a can of
That's actually true.
sparkling
Yeah.
water, LaCroix or something like across the table.
That's 'cause no-
I drank mine this morning.
That's true.
Yeah.
None of those sponsorships came in,
That's
so we got to stop drinking them.
Yeah.
Going for a Gordetto sponsorship now.
Live and on location, Lance Hepler.
Lance Romance, actually Lance No Pants, coming at you from the mountains of Flagstaff, Arizona.
Yeah,
Ooh,
don't,
Flagstaff.
don't remind us. Don't remind us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we're getting ready for the podcast today, and we were just checking in with Lance to see where he was, and he sent us a picture. Might make some interesting artwork for the
cover art.
podcast next week.
Highly controversial content. Oh, Lance just posted on Strava a second ago and did not put the picture that he sent us. Lance, I'm highly disappointed. I thought for
Should
sure
I
that was
include that?
I think you should. Let's see if Strava flags
You might
it.
need to put like an emoji or something like that over your
Yeah,
butt,
yeah,
but
Put
I'll
emoji.
do something.
Yeah.
Little
People are
peach
going to wonder
emoji.
what the heck. There's a picture my wife took of me standing in an open field underneath a mountain in a mountain meadow, and I'm facing away from the camera with some strategically placed hands over my butt crack. Yes, I have no clothes on.
You're wearing
Yes, if you're wondering, there are no clothes.
nothing but your sexy mustache.
No, I had sandals on. I'll take it back.
Okay.
I was wearing my sandals.
I was nervous after your last ride. You had the title was a bit cryptic, but it sounded like you were possibly going to be chopping the mustache. So I was nervous for a day there.
That's why it said, "It is not the time to be removing your booger
yes.
broom."
Okay,
is
good.
what I said.
Good. Yeah, I need to read through it again then.
All right, let's do some backpedaling. Matt, start us off, bud.
I don't have a lot for us here today. I biked for the first time in a long time just because I got the Trek put back together enough to put on the trainer and did 30 minutes on Zwift. So for the week, cycling 30 minutes. Jake,
Wow.
hopefully you beat that.
But your B-roll for your videos lately, Casper's pointing this out. Your B-roll of the bike is awesome. Like the different angles you're
trek?
taking. No, your B-roll where you're like the camera's right along the chain and it's like cycling through.
So, okay.
Which makes me think that you're just taking video of the bike and not actually riding it.
Sure, exactly. What is interesting is sometimes I'll I rented this lens and it's this very specific lens. It's very hard to work with, but I just went around filming stuff with it.
Yeah.
And then like as videos pop up, like I can use that,
Awesome
So
B-roll.
in fact, the one with like the bike chain that was like the Trek video, that was it's called this like probe lens or whatever. And so that one's from there, and it's a cool clip. Like it is neat, but it's really hard to work with that lens. You need tons of light. And there's another one for this past video, which is like checking out your pain caves, and it's like going underneath the a bike trainer. It's like going through things, and that's what this lens is good at. Anyway, randomly filmed a whole bunch of stuff, randomly stuffed that stuff in videos. So some of the video that you take might be like 6 months old.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that I actually videoed it for this particular topic, but
Still cool. It's so cool. I like that video a lot too.
Ran with Ethan. We did a tempo run for him instead of a long run because he's been doing these long, really slow runs or whatever. And so we decided to like warm up and then do 2 miles at a pace, and I didn't know what he should run, and so we were like, maybe try 8:30s, and then we went faster. So that was good, and it was fun to be out there running with him. And
what did he finish up with his pace?
It was about 8-minute pace, a little bit slower than that, maybe 8:10 or something like that.
Good for him.
Yeah, no, he did great, and he's running every day. He's having a blast. He's
Is he
running
mountain biking
more
back
than
in
I am.
the cool spot back there?
He wants to bike back there more, but we're a little bit nervous about sending him back there by himself. There's but he kind of bikes every day, and he runs. He runs every day, and then he swims about 3 times a week.
Wow, chip off the old block.
Except for
all these guys.
all I do, I'm working like
Matt didn't start swimming until how old were you when you started swimming?
I don't know, 40.
Like, he's got a couple
I don't know
year
if you
advantage
consider.
on him.
I don't know if you consider what I do swimming at this point.
I don't swim. I know that.
But yeah, I've been just working. So Ethan's doing all the exercising now, and I'm doing.
Wrapped up in all those hard negotiations to purchase TikTok, battling it out there with Microsoft.
I'm one of the bids.
Yeah.
I just think I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to beat out.
What's going to be your counter bid to 50 billion?
That changed for 20?
51 billion?
51. Oh, billion.
Why
I thought you said
billions
dollars?
when we can do millions? 50 million.
So yeah.
Excellent. Mr. Price.
I think I had a slightly exciting week. I don't know. No, it probably wasn't that exciting, but I got some good training in. We've got a very rough date for doing a Ironman fun dialed extravaganza weekend. I want to organize it so that the weekend of what looks like going to be the September 19th and 20th, anybody who wants to go and do a solo effort with some like help out there, as in like we'll have some nutrition table. I want to be bringing the tent out for people who need anything, a little transition area out there for anybody who wants to do any solo distance, most likely in a Saturday to Sunday combination. So the 19th being Saturday, the 20th being Sunday. On the 20th, there's myself and 2 others, Jeremiah Romero and Josh Mondo, who want to do basically a full iron effort. And I say effort because I have no idea if we're going to be able to get. I mean, it just seems like a lot to do in one day. But, Matt's done it, so I'm sure I'll maybe be able to get through it. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know how to pace an Ironman.
You'll be fine.
I got no clue. But anyway, the Saturday will be a fun day for anybody who wants to do more like a sprint, Olympic, or half iron sort of distance.
Cool. So do we have like a water cooler or something that we could take out there?
Oh yeah.
Stuff.
I'm going to be out there Saturday since I don't want to do mine till Sunday and just helping anybody who needs like nutrition. We can separate out everybody's nutrition so it's all there so people don't have to think about that and they can just kind of hand off their bike and we can put it by the cars or do anything like that.
Is this going to be predominantly done out at Vancouver Lake?
Yeah. So locationally, we can't swim at Vancouver Lake right now because it's still closed.
Okay.
Because of green algae. Unless that changes, what I was thinking is possibly Frenchman's Bar for the swim. Now, that's tough because you got to swim upstream at some point. It's a reasonable swim. I'm going to start swimming out there a little bit more to test. If not, what we're going to do is we're going to do the swim at Horseshoe, and then everybody can get in their cars and we'll go down to Vancouver Lake and do the bike and run at Vancouver Lake.
Can you just hike up like 3.2 miles? Is that how far it is? And then like drift down? I'll sit in an inner tube next to you and see how it's going.
You could do that. You could just swim straight down the river.
If you're doing your full Ironman, though, you wouldn't drive down. You would just bike
I'm
down.
probably just going to do it at Frenchman's Bar then.
You would do Frenchman's Bar.
Yeah, because I would like to say we could just swim at Horseshoe and then bike down to Vancouver Lake, but that would be some stops. I don't, I want the younger kids to be able to do it and be safe and have a loop course where they can be safe and we don't have to be like, oh, is everybody at Vancouver Lake? And then realize like, oh, somebody's lost. So yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm thinking more about your specific event.
Yeah. I'm probably going to keep it all around.
You don't want to stop. You don't want to hit a stop sign.
I want a loop where I'm just like, I know because somebody was like, oh, isn't only like a 10-mile loop going to be kind of maddening? I was like,
that's what you live for.
I once ran 18 miles in an indoor track, so I'm pretty good at getting bored. But yeah. But yeah. Let me think. Workout wise, it was my birthday on Friday. I almost forgot it was my birthday.
I'm just going to say
30.
I always don't. I know.
I'm just 30. Yeah. And that's just how old I am.
You're always 30.
I'm just going to be 30 for a while.
It was your birthday on Friday?
It was Friday. Yeah.
Why didn't you say something?
I had to think because I genuinely forgot to like towards the end of the week. And then Cassie had to remind me. I know.
Did you guys do anything fun for your birthday? Did you guys go out to dinner or anything?
So on Friday, yeah, we got some we made dinner, all that, got some gelato, which was awesome. Cassie knew that the only thing I really wanted to do was like race Swift and then run hard, but it was so hot on Friday. I got off the bike after being pretty dehydrated and was like, it's kind of warm right now. Got out towards Vancouver Lake. I was like, it is more than really warm right now. I'm like getting tingly. It's so warm. But then Saturday I rode the full rack with Dustin, which was awesome. I haven't ridden that route since you crashed.
Yeah.
That was the last time I rode the full rack.
1 year ago.
Yeah.
Almost exactly.
Yeah, almost exactly a year ago, which is kind of crazy. So that was fun. I still remember exactly where you crashed. Right when we passed, I was joking with Dustin. I'm like, Dustin, take your hands off the handlebars. He's like, what? I was like, inside joke. That's
inside joke. You wouldn't get it. That course is fun. It's a nice like country out and about.
Beautiful way to see Clark County. It absolutely is.
Did you have any bad luck with traffic? There's some areas that fine. I feel
only got flipped off once, and it was like a nice flip off. The guy even went into the other lane and then flipped us off. It was like super polite. All
right, buddy. I feel like I saw Dustin on our run on Sunday. Like it seemed like he was like on the trail, on Heritage Trail or something.
Yeah,
and it was.
He's riding a lot now. He's fit. He's very fit. He did a Y Sting attempt. He completed it on gravel. Which was awesome, out towards Silver Star area.
Cool.
Which is rough. That's a lot of climbing for gravel. But yeah, and then Sunday, ran at Forest Park, saw Craig Engels and Grant Fisher. For all of our cyclist friends who don't watch runners, that is running royalty right now in America. Grant is part of the 1,500-meter relay American record holders now.
Is he?
Which is awesome. Yeah,
I like him.
Grant's awesome.
Fisher. Yeah,
he's really cool.
Yeah.
I yelled. I kind of fanboyed at him as I ran by. I realized it was Grant. I was like, nice relay. He's like, thanks.
Oh, that's good. That's the right thing to say.
Oh, yeah. Just yelled at him. Job. But yeah. And then today woke up and we've gotten this consistent little small group track workout going on Monday mornings. So, of course, right afterwards, this is the only part of my back pedal that matters, I have to ask Matt, what does this translate to in multiple distances?
Go for it.
So exactly this exact workout.
What was your workout?
So we did 10 by 400.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah, and leave on 2 minutes. So it was going to be technically varying rest, but the goal was going to be 50 seconds rest, basically.
What did you hit? You went sub 70 the whole way?
Yeah. So went 67, 68 for a lot of them, and I think the last... like 8 and 9 were like 70, and then the last one was back down to 68. So it was like in that 68
Did that feel
range.
Pretty comfortable? Like you like came through and you're like, good, get back to the start?
I wanted them to feel a little bit more comfortable. It felt like speed work, but the 60, like when I dropped down to 70, that felt manageable. Like the slow lap at 70 felt very manageable. 68 was like felt fast.
Yeah.
I want to feel slightly more comfortable.
15:05 5K. Translation.
Jake, you're losing control. It's all
Lance, when you get back, Lance, I need help.
31:10 for 10K. Blah blah blah. Something like that.
Okay. What does this button do right here? Oh,
mute. Those don't random numbers. Those are fast times, so you need to race.
I know. I think I need like another month. I'm gonna race, do something.
Yeah.
I need to do something.
Find something, do something.
Yeah.
Cool. Lance.
And bikes.
Lance, back pedal force.
I had a wonderfully fantastic week. I talked last week about going on this river trip with my daughter and my wife, and we just had a blast. 4 days out in the middle of nowhere in Cataract Canyon outside of Moab, just rafting and eating too much and sitting in the 100-degree weather all day and hitting big rapids and camping and sleeping on cots under the open air. It was just a fantastic week. I loved every minute of it. It was great to be with my daughter and see her doing what she's actually professionally good at, being a river guide on big class water. It was a pretty amazing week. So I had a good time, really good time.
Excellent.
My wife, there was like 30 people on the trip, and there were 5 other guides as well. But it was really nice to spend some quality time with my 23-year-old daughter, who is doing fantastic. So we had a good time. The rest of the time I spent in Moab, did some mountain biking, did some gravel riding. Right now we're in Flagstaff, Arizona. We came down here to get some dental work done. Actually, I have a nephew who is a dentist in Flagstaff. And so we had to buzz down here to have a couple of things done. And so we're kind of hanging out because Flagstaff is wonderful in the summertime. His name is Kyle Hobson in Flagstaff, Arizona. He's a fantastic dentist here in the area. So we've been hanging out. Did some mountain biking here. I just did a gravel ride this morning, like 35 miles around this mountain. I flatted twice actually on this loop. One took me 15 minutes to fix, and I had to tube it, and the other one took 60 seconds to fix. So, but it was
60 seconds.
Dynaplug?
Well, I did. All I had to do was stop and put more air in the tube.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
I just had to, add
CO2.
some air to it and back on the. But the other one, I had to dynaplug it twice. It wasn't holding. I found another hole right at where the tire meets the rim. I had to pull the tire off. Had to put a tube in it.
Oh, wow.
And I had to pump. It was like a whole process. And I realized in my pack, I didn't have enough tubes. I didn't have enough CO2s. I had plenty of Dynaplugs, but I didn't have enough tubes or CO2s. So I was glad to make it back to the van. So it's been fun.
Cool.
Oh, the other thing I did on the drive from Moab to Flagstaff, we stopped in Monument Valley, Arizona, right in Arizona Utah border, and my wife, she was really irritated because I had her stop and take a whole bunch of photos and video while I was riding my bike in Monument Valley. It's right in the spot where Forrest Gump quit his running session. And so I made a stupid little video.
Right, so you remember, if you're, I don't know, you have to be like a fan of the movie or whatever, but
Absolutely.
he's just running through the desert and he just stops. And that's a cool scene.
That's actually a really iconic spot right there, Lance. That's pretty cool. Now, of course, the only problem was you were riding a bicycle at that point. If I remember the movie correctly, I believe he was running at that point.
This is a running podcast.
That's because I corrected it. I made it proper by riding a bike instead of running. He shouldn't have been running. He should have been riding a bike.
He probably would have made it further if he had been riding a bike.
Yes, I fixed it. So
Was there a segment on that hill?
there was. There was, you could see in the background of the video and the pictures I took, you could see the road going up a hill. And when we finished taking all the video, I rode up the hill and, there was a segment there. I ended up getting top 10 on the segment.
Oh, nice.
Who holds that? And please tell me it's like called Forrest Gump's Road or something like that.
It's called Forrest Gump Hill.
Uh-huh.
That's good.
Actually, but there's only been like 190 people who have done it because it's literally in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's like 100 miles from Flagstaff and like 100 miles from Moab, and so it's not really close. It's close to the Navajo Indian Reservation, so there's really not anything anywhere. So somebody riding there is probably doing what I did where they stopped, got out, rode for 20 miles, and got back in the van. The race across the West used to come through that area. And an Oregon bike racing friend of mine, Chris Ramsey, when he did the race across the West in 2017, he went through that same area. But I think they came down that hill, not up it. And so, but
very cool.
it was a pretty cool spot, pretty amazing spot.
Did Tom Hanks actually run that road?
Yeah.
Like they actually ran in the filming. They're like, we need you to run this entire thing, and we're just going to film you at the end. We need you to be tired.
Yeah, he ran probably 50 meters. So good for you, Tom. That you shouldn't run any further than that anymore.
It's like, I'm stopping now. Where's my bike? Hey, real quick, going back to your rafting trip, how did the bike rack work out on the back of the boat?
Yes, 4 straight days of zeros. I did no riding at all, and big deal.
How did you manage with the twitching while you're on the boat? I mean, did you fall off the boat because you're having like your convulsions from lack of riding?
I was, I just filled my mind with other things. So I actually didn't miss it at all for those 4 days because I was just, I was soaking in the experience right there in front of me. So it was awesome.
Cool. All right, my back pedal real quick. I didn't do a whole heck of a lot of riding last week. I mean, I got out and rode yesterday, which was kind of nice.
I probably rode the most with my 30 minutes.
I got out and did 50 miles yesterday, which was a little bit rough because I was still a little bit tired and sore and dehydrated from the week of camping. But the camping was freaking awesome. Yeah, we went to Lost Lake, and I did get some rides in out there, but they were all like family rides. I had all these like grand plans of like, I'm going to go do all these gravel roads and this, that, and the other. And you get out there and then you get kind of immersed in everything going on. And I'm like, there's no real time for me to take off.
It's family time.
The one chunk of time that I had to go for a ride, guess what I did?
Fished.
No. Got in the freaking car, drove from Lost Lake up there at the top of Mount Rainier back down to Hood River so I could have cell service so I could connect to the internet so I could upload the podcast last week.
Oh, yeah, you did tell me the story, yeah.
It was a 45-minute drive each way to get that uploaded.
Wow.
My goal was to get that done while I was driving in the car. Everything was going fantastic, and I thought I had it mapped out where I can get this done. I'll get it uploaded before we get up there into the mountains because I know up where we were staying, there's no cell service.
Nothing.
There's zero. Not even the general store, like in the lodge there, they don't even have Wi-Fi that you can jump onto because they said that the bandwidth that they have is just barely enough for them to run their operation. So I was thinking, let's just get it done up there. Once I figured out that we were in the car and then the cell service dropped out a lot sooner than I thought.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is like 80% or 85% done. You know, I just need to put some final touches on it, then upload it. And that upload process can take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So that just didn't happen while we get up there. So I had to drive back down to make sure that the ladies and gentlemen of the internet got their podcast for last week.
Wow.
But yeah, that kind of chewed up the one day that I had time allotted to go for a gravel ride. Other than that, did go riding with my son a few times. That was fun. Rode with the family a few times. That was fun. And then we, the last full day that we were there, rented a little skiff. There's the lake has no motorboats on it, so you have to do everything manually. You have to basically row.
Yeah.
Guess who spent a lot of time rowing a boat
How's the
all
shoulder?
day long? The shoulder is rough today. It is tired. It is sore. I came in for physical therapy when I got back with Evan because we got back in time for me to sneak in here for him to fix me. But my shoulder was very stiff, and I was feeling it on my ride quite a bit yesterday. As a matter of fact, I even rode on the trainer on Saturday so that I could just give my arm a little bit more rest time. And that was kind of cool because I killed two birds with one stone. I could ride and then watched our teammate Carl Bailey get married.
That was the other part of my back pedal I forgot there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That is cool.
Congratulations, Carl, who also helps us out in the shop here.
Yep.
He's just an all-around awesome guy on the team.
Yeah, rode on Zwift while attending and watching a wedding. That was kind of fun.
That's a first.
Yeah,
they did a cool job with it, too.
Yeah.
Also, me and Cassie definitely danced during the incredible, I think everybody was like, oh, this is going to be awkward to do like the little dance montage. We just had fun with it. It was a blast.
I didn't see you guys. They didn't like scan to you or scroll to you.
They panned to us once.
Oh, they did?
They did, yeah.
How did I
It was
miss
like
that?
real quick. It was like 5 seconds.
Oh.
You're probably looking at your watts for a second.
Maybe that's what it was.
They should have panned to Jake on the bike.
I had my video turned off. I didn't want anybody to see that.
That would have been
It was
hilarious.
this sweaty mess riding on a bike.
Back to camping. We had a bet on how many fish you were going to catch.
That was my next thing.
Oh, yes.
The over-under, I believe Matt set at 12.
Yes.
Evan took the over.
Yep.
Matt took the under. Matt took even money.
Of course.
Who won?
Probably Evan.
Probably me.
It was the under.
It was
What?
the under. You had a bad
Fishing for everybody there.
Come on, Barrett.
The waters were really warm. The trout just were not biting, and they were
What was
deep.
it at?
So, 2. I only caught 2 fish.
Wow.
That's way too confident.
And one of them is like you can barely
It's been
call it
very
fish.
hot, though.
I was
It's been
using
very
a
hot.
little lure that was maybe like 3 or 4 inches long, and the fish was like twice the size of the lure. I'm like, man, you're a ballsy little guy. You took a lure that was like half your size, so he wanted that. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that was fun. So I guess Lance gets the winner chicken dinner on that one.
Yeah. What do you win? One of those fish.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
I gave that to an osprey that was
Which I was gifting to Matt.
Thanks. Thanks.
yeah, that fish swallowed the hook and he wasn't going to make it, so I held on to it and then just kind of checked out like for the osprey. There was osprey all over the place up there, and it was fun watching them dive down and pick up fish out of the water. So
That's cool.
I fed some
That's
osprey.
cool.
Yeah. Other than that, it was a nice week. Got to get back to the grind this week and do things here in the lab and try and get back onto some training. So. Cool. Let's jump into our Patreon. Before we get into our little drawing that we promised, let's do a little spotlight.
Yeah.
Evan's going to talk about
2
this
of them.
one.
Mike Back and John Hoffman on Sunday swam a full Ironman distance,
That's
which is
awesome.
Wow.
4.2 kilometers, I believe, 2.4 miles. Some way too long time period to be swimming.
It's a big day of swimming.
It is. We did it at Horseshoe Lake.
Solid
It was
amount of
fun.
swimming.
I have never swam that far. That was at once, just like in open
you
water,
probably
just straight up
swim.
swam.
Not at
Oh,
once
yeah, I
in
mean,
open
like,
water.
we've in the pool
You and
done
I
more.
have swam
Oh,
that far
definitely.
together.
Yeah,
So
it's so different in the
I feel
open
like
water.
we
just
swam
like
5K, haven't we?
6 actually. We've done 1.6. Yeah.
No, we did. Well, we did
Oh,
that
no, we
one
did-
5K day.
We did, yeah. Yeah, you're
Anyway.
right. But yeah, Mike and John made it through. John was like happy afterwards. John like got out of the water and was like, feeling pretty good. I was like, I think I'm gonna go for a ride right now. I was like, John has over prepared for everything in his journey towards completing a full Ironman.
Good for him.
And he's killing it. But
Cool.
yeah, he'll be ready for 2021.
Fun for them. Lance is having some connectivity issues here. Hopefully he'll join us back. But if you hear a submarine, that's Lance trying to reconnect with us here. All right, let's jump into our Patreon drawing. And pretty much this week, we're going to draw out of the hat, and the person that wins will get their choice of a bag of Scratch electrolyte hydration mix, or a pair of socks, Dowd socks, or a buff. You can choose. It's your call. So,
Or
Wow.
a thing of Gordettos from me, personally.
pass. So we got this little jar of names, and they're all folded up. Matt can't see, so I'm going to hand it over here to Matt.
can't
He's going to
see.
pull one out. He's going to unravel it, and he's going to say,
Dove.
Dove
Boom.
Eric. Dove Eric.
Dove's gotten a buff, I believe.
already got a
Has she
buff.
gotten the socks, though?
She has socks. I think I saw him in a Strava post.
So she should
She
choose.
gets some
She
scratch.
should choose the scratch, right?
Maybe she wants a second pair of socks, though.
She might.
Honestly,
yeah,
I would
that's
probably
true.
choose a second pair of socks. Cause
or
I
a
really
buff.
do
You
like
know, it gets a
cycling
little
socks.
chilly in Ohio.
She already has her
It
boxes.
does. It is pretty darn warm there right now, though. Oh my gosh, it's hot in Ohio right now. It's so humid.
Nevertheless, Dove, when you listen to this, congratulations. Shoot us an email. See here, Jake at
She can just shoot me a text at that point.
Jake at DowdCycling.com, or text or email or smoke signals, whatever works best for you. So cool. All right. 12 our patrons, thank you very much. If you yourself are interested in becoming a patron, go to dialpodcast.com and you will see the Patreon link right there on that landing page. Click through there and you'll see a few options to become a patron, and we would greatly appreciate that. It helps out the show. Moving on. Gonna ask a PT. People have been asking. They want to know, why am I getting hot spots on my feet? What gives, Evan?
What gives?
This one actually, Jake just tossed us out. I actually do have 2 people right now who we're kind of working to fix this with. So there's a couple different reasons. I know last week we talked about like hot spots in your hand. This week, so when we're talking about like cleat placement, is generally the very first thing to look at. And anybody who's ever Googled how to place, cleats onto my shoes, you've probably seen the take your first and fifth knuckle on your toes, the big knuckles, those metatarsal knuckles, and you're going to basically draw a line in between the two, and you want that cleat to perfectly bisect that line. Now, that's your grand average. So if we're a bell curve, that's going to catch most people. There's going to be people that have asymmetries, though, that are need to get dealt with, and that means the best example right now that I'm actually dealing with is telling people to go to a little bit wider. If let's say they're using speed plays, go to a 65 millimeter speed play spindle. That kind of brings your feet a little bit wider out. Now that could be for very wider pelvis people, or anybody that's starting to get a lot of hot spots on the outside of their feet. Because let's say that when they go to push down, they're kind of tilting that ankle in and putting some pressure on that outside knuckle, that fifth knuckle on the outside. Now, this is where, though, you got to be careful because any adjustment you make, there's going to be an adaptation period. So understand that if you make an adjustment, it should be a small one at first, especially if you're adjusting that cleat placement. But you've got to, first make sure that you have appropriate cleat placement before you go, go see the doc, go try to take any, painkiller, nerve sort of issue medication. Also looking at just, are your cycling shoes big enough? You should be able to spread your toes in your shoes. If you can't spread your toes in your shoes, because number one thing is get a bigger,
your feet are going to swell during the ride.
Exactly.
Things like that happen.
Yep, exactly. So those would be my easiest two if you're getting those symptoms is look at your cleat placement, look at the actual size of the shoe. So make sure you're able to spread your toes out into there and make sure that you are not, driving too far in and tilting your foot out so that you're putting pressure on that area. And if you are, maybe time to look at a different cleat spindle width.
Okay.
That was like 2.5 minutes. I was over there again.
Did you check your time? Last time you had a timer.
I had a timer.
Going.
I just checked the general time here because I realized down to the second. I could just lie if I don't time it down to the second. So.
Sorry, Lance, you're getting a little loud there. What's going on, bud? You still there?
I think he's eating into the microphone right now.
I am still here. I did have. No idea. My battery is dying. I'm losing connectivity. I'm having all sorts of issues.
This sounds
today.
like a Gravity. Have you ever seen the movie Gravity,
last,
where it's like, you start like break out towards the end, you start to float off into space.
The pants are falling off the wagon.
Exactly. Lance is floating off into space now.
All right. Well, hopefully you can still hear us, Lance. There he is. He's a little robotic out there, but he's good. Cool. Well, thanks, Evan. That's some good information.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
It was George Clooney in Gravity. That's what I was trying to remember.
Right.
George Clooney. Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Nothing like a little dead air there. Let's jump into our topic for the day: red flags in cycling and triathlon. Red flags.
Like red flags for people or red flags for things? I'm joking. We were going to talk about both, but
all.
Yeah.
Where's what about Champ Bailey?
Champ Bailey is.
I wasn't sure if you're going to be there, so I was going to skip over that.
Can I be Champ Bailey for a second? We need an alter ego here. Who's Champ Bailey's alter ego?
Hold on a second.
You better do Champ Bailey now before you lose me.
Okay. Well,
Lance.
breaking news: Champ Bailey has joined the show.
Yes.
Champ Bailey,
space.
go before you don't have a signal anymore.
Champ Bailey here. Can you hear anything? Do
Yes.
I sound like an idiot?
Go, Champ. No, you got it.
Okay. I've got one thing to report, and then you might lose me forever. There was a race. They held the classic Strade Bianche in the Tuscany region of Italy. It was a 150-kilometer race that goes through the gravel roads of Tuscany, and amazingly, Wout van Aert pulled out the win in a fantastic move with about, I think it was about 20 kilometers ago, the last gravel climb. He pulled away from a solid field and held on for the win. It was pretty cool to watch Wout van Aert actually pull off the win. So good for you, Wout. That was awesome. Bettiol from EF Education, he was in the mix initially and tried to make a move that got pulled back, and he ended up fourth. But it was just cool to see racing. A little weird, not very many spectators, which is what they wanted. It was very hot. It was 95 degrees, so that this is normally a race that runs at about 65 degrees, so that kind of changed things. Matthew Vanderpool flatted at an inopportune time. Julian, same thing, had 5 flats during the day and was just out of the mix. So it was some kind of exciting racing that happened.
Crazy.
In the women's race too, Van Vleuten won, who's on a major winning streak now. She's in my opinion,
every race she's entering right now.
Yeah, that to me was actually the more exciting race because she had to draw back a Spaniard who actually got away from the group, and she brought her in pretty late and made for an exciting sprint. But she's not going to get beat up that last climb for sure. She's dominant in any style finish right now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What about Everesting news? Was there some Everesting news?
There was a amateur Irishman who just
sure about this
shattered the. I'm positive this happened. This guy went 7:04. For you can look it up right now. He shattered Contador's record.
Wow.
I don't think Gaiman can get that.
Where can we go to find this?
This is, I mean, if you just type in Everest Irishman record, this guy just destroyed it.
Is it official with the Everesting group?
Yes, I believe so. He just had an interview with Lantern Rouge. For anybody who's a YouTuber for cycling, Lantern Rouge.
Irish rider destroys Contador's Everesting record by 20 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't just, and he in the interview I was watching, he just straight scienced this thing. Like
was he doing stuff like we talked about, where he's like fairings and I'm gonna just like switch bikes, do crazy stuff like that.
He found the perfect climb. He had his nutrition down to a science. I mean, the guy just in the conversation clearly was like, he was planning on just this. Like, this is all this guy was training for all year, was this.
Did it get signed after that?
He should, honestly. Anybody needs to look at that and be like, yeah, this guy can be good.
He represented Ireland at the 2012 World Championships.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. He's got some Palomars. That's for sure. Like, he's strong, but I just don't, when you're comparing him to Alberto Contador, we're talking about two different worlds.
Totally,
yeah.
In the vein of pro cycling, has anybody heard, or do you guys have an opinion on, or do you even care that Richie Porte might be going back to Ineos?
I think it's interesting news. I don't understand
I don't understand why Ineos would want him back.
Well, right.
To be completely honest. I like Richie
unless
Porte.
he's like,
think about it.
I like Richie Porte, but yeah,
he's not going to be their number one guy, and he's getting up there in age. But I think if you think about like the experience he brings to the team,
sure.
people like him. He's strong, and he would be a good workhorse for Egan Bernal.
But is he going to do? I mean, like,
it seems weird that he would.
He's been a GC contender for so long.
Do you think there was bad blood between him and Froome? I always thought they were best friends. But now it's like, oh, Froome's leaving, I'll come back. It seems very odd timing.
It does.
I thought they were best friends, but who knows?
Well, because they both had to deal with Wiggins during the same time period, so I think they both probably connected over having to deal with. As much as I love Wiggo, that's,
yeah, I hear he's like.
Ineos has always been, since they've been this strong, Ineos has always been just this group that's just at odds with each other, it seems like.
Well, this is going to be an interesting year if we see a race, which I hope we do.
They came out again and said over the weekend that they're pretty sure that the tour is going to go on. They're standing behind that.
Yeah.
It's the end of this month. It's supposed to start. Yeah, it's like 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away, or something like that.
We'll see.
Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks.
We will see.
Interesting. Well, we seem to have lost Lance. He may or may not call. So if you hear that little Skype ringtone, then Lance will be back. If not, carrying on without him. Mm-hmm. Let's get back into our show topic for the day. Now that we kind of went all over the place. Red flags in cycling and triathlon. You guys have anything that you want to start about? Kind of opening that up just about anything. I'm just kind of curious if you guys have anything that we should share with the listeners.
So when I heard the topic, I immediately thought red flag would be like, this is the tricky part that I think comes with time and figuring out like what's an injury and what do you need to like nurse and what is something that you can ignore and not like worry about, right?
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like, I'm thinking like, hey, this calf tear is a red flag. Like I need to stop pushing. Whereas my quads are sore, cry me a river, right?
Exactly,
like move on. And, that's part of training,
the process,
right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's like that line of drawing this, the difference between the two. And I think a lot of new athletes struggle with that line.
Yeah.
But
that line, I think, is also something that no matter how much you try is going to be one that you bump into. I mean, if you talk to any endurance athlete ever, cyclist, runner, swimmer, anybody, like there's an injury history there.
Sure.
So for me, I even try to usually take away that language for somebody and start to make it, this is part of the process. This is a tissue tolerance building process for you. Instead of, when we think of them as injuries early on, I think people get very scared with that process, which is reasonable because injuries are bad.
You're a good example of that because you had, I don't remember if it was like your hip or something like that, where it seemed like it was maybe a stress fracture or something like that. And it was like, hey, I'm going to take a little bit of a break from running.
Yeah.
Like you, at some point you had to decide whether it's like, nope, I'm just sore, push through, go do my track work that I have scheduled for this week.
Exactly.
And you chose not to at some point. You may have pushed through for a week and then decided that it's, this is too much. But I don't know when you made that decision, but at some point you were like, I need to take a small break from running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I took a firm, 2 full weeks away from running where I did purely strength training and a lot of the stuff that I give people in biking. Yeah. But I think the earlier you can notice and catch those red flags, the better. Same thing in cycling is if you can catch a red flag early on of my fit does not feel awesome before you go and do that weekend century, probably going to save your
bacon.
Definitely save your bacon before you go out in that direction.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Injuries, they definitely suck. What do you tell somebody that has a pretty significant injury that keeps wanting to push forward and is going to go out there, do stuff despite what their doctor's orders are, despite what their physical therapist order are, and they're going to continue to train and ride and do all kinds of stupid stuff.
Usually, and this has been as I've gotten a little bit older as a just clinician, I've started to change my mindset towards the patient because there's one thing in medicine I don't like, which is where as a medical provider, we blame the patient for their situation, which, trust me, happens frequently. I think it's as a medical provider, it's a whole lot easier to blame somebody's lack of success on them than looking inward and being like, okay, I need to understand this person's going to do this activity.
Yeah.
They're going to. Me trying to shut them down is probably not reasonable. Is it the best thing for them? Maybe. But that doesn't mean that they're going to. So we have to talk the same language. Now, I've, especially with triathletes, started to do this where I try to shift their focus.
Right.
Where it's, okay, right now running is your very limiting activity. We need to, I'm not going to take running entirely away from you, but we need to shift your focus. Instead of trying to take something away, it's almost like dieting. Mm-hmm. It's could everybody's diet be better? Yeah, for sure. Everybody's diet could be better.
Instead of being like, all right, you need to eat less.
Only eat greens.
You need to eat less. Be like, no, you eat a lot more vegetables.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're gonna be okay.
Exactly.
It's a different mentality of a way of attacking the diet or whatever. Yeah, I agree.
Because I have some patients who will follow, and I mean, really, you two at the table would be two people who definitely very much follow down to. Now, I'm not sure if both of you would have been that way in your early 20s, late teens. Probably not. No, but that's I think with life experience, you both are on that path. Now, I have. Yeah. I'm thinking of one very specifically. I'm not going to call him out on here, but I know he would laugh if I did. I've got a younger athlete who definitely has that grit, has that really endurance-based kind of hard approach to the sport, which I like, but has dug himself some holes over time and really has a hard time backing off.
Yeah.
And that's a person you got to be careful with, because I understand from my point of view is if I tell him, hey, we're not going to run for a while, that's not going to fly. And it's also not going to happen. And I don't want somebody to have to lie to me all the time either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's huge, right?
Because that's a red flag for me is that...
okay.
Yeah, if they're lying to me, there's a lack of trust there.
For sure.
Now, with most of my patients, I have very good trust. And that's just because I tell them, hey, if you do something, just tell me. I'm not going to sit here and be... I am not here to be your, father or whatever during this. Yeah. My only goal is for you to be able to run if your goal is faster or just pain-free. Mm-hmm. Or, get back on the bike faster and pain-free. So if we're having to deal with changes in what's going on, just tell me, because that's fine. I completely understand most endurance athletes, whatever I say, they're going to do 10% more, guaranteed.
I think the change of focus is good, especially because triathletes can do that. Mm-hmm. I think our pure cyclist listeners, I know most of you guys are triathletes, but our pure cyclists,
most of you are runners, actually, from what I heard.
Our pure cyclist listeners, I feel like, what do you do when you're like, you need a break from... You don't need to do squats, and you need to take a break from triathlon. Yeah. Right. So what's the focus that we could point them towards?
I think for cycling being such a high volume sport, this is, as a medical practitioner, should just be a red flag when you're dealing with a cyclist, because if you're comparing them to a runner, which I think some medical providers do, they try to compare the two sports, which they're not comparable. Cycling, your typical Cat 1, Cat 2 cyclist can be training upwards of 20 hours a week.
Right.
What runner is training 20 hours a week? Your Olympians, maybe. I'm not even sure if Kipchoge's logging 20 miles of pure running a week.
20 hours, yeah. No, I think it's one of those things where it's well, do you count all of the, kind of
strength training,
all this stuff? Then
drills, everything.
They're not running,
no,
that many hours.
Cycling, the sport itself, they're doing that many hours.
Right.
And then even just your guys that we have on the team consistently knocking out 15-hour weeks like it's nothing. I mean, Jordan Rickards is knocking out 20 hours like it's his business right now. And,
Well, was it 94 hours or something like that he
crazy.
finished with in
Good luck
July?
holding his wheel this year. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, and then I mean, Dr. Hanel's 15 hours a week guaranteed.
Oh, easy
Every week.
Yeah,
no
easy.
doubt. Yeah, and I mean, that's you're talking a lot of time in one linear sport. So yes, that's where it's tougher, is because now it's like, where do you tell that person to go? I actually find, and this may be strange, but like even sports like rowing, if they have access to rowing, is actually a lower stress on like repetitiveness on the, because it can be shorter workouts and get a little bit more whole body, so it gives you a little bit better aerobic effect in a shorter time period.
After this past weekend, man, I'm not going to disagree with you.
Seriously, yeah. I mean, you can get, and I remember back in the, like in my off seasons, I used to do just erg rowing like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
I'm sure my form was absolutely terrible, but God, 45 minutes, I was exhausted after rowing, and it'd be real. I mean, you could be exhausted after a 45-minute bike workout, but if your bike fit and the ergonomics of cycling are what's causing your symptoms, you need to get out of that pattern.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, I would love to say cyclists, you need to come in and strength train and pick up some other activities that are weight bearing. But I know that not everybody's open to that. So, yeah.
They should be.
They should be. Yep. They definitely should be.
Cool. Anything else? What else you guys got?
Well, there's also I know Jacob put in here the equipment red flags.
That's a good point. That's another.
Whereas Jake puts, if your bike is making noise, that's not normal.
That's definitely always a red flag. The equipment thing that I get a lot of questions about, like I can understand if it was like a computer, like you get some little knockoff computer and it's gonna maybe do kind of the same stuff as a Garmin for a fraction of the price, or you find some cheap GoPro knockoff that you want to put on. That's fine. The one that makes me a little nervous is when people bring in the Chinese wheels.
Chinese frames.
And the Chinese frames.
Yeah.
Now, what's your recourse? Let's say that, like, what do you know about this company? I mean, it doesn't have any labeling on it, and somebody may have told you, like, oh, they're the OEM for fill in the name. Yeah. Major wheel manufacturer.
And maybe they are. Maybe they're not. No one knows.
But
there's
nobody knows.
Consequences to them. That thing can fall apart on you on any descent, and there's. That's that.
How are you going to feel when you're going downhill at 35, 40, 45, 50 miles an hour, and all of a sudden your front wheel just explodes?
Yep.
You're done.
I will say
$20,000 worth of medical bills.
I know
right there.
quite a few people that have had good luck with these random Chinese knockoff things. Scary. I mean, this goes back to me, like my whole Trek conversation, where it's like you buy Trek because you want to be able to call someone when there's a problem.
Yeah.
Which they finally called me back like on Friday.
Oh, you did get that phone call, huh?
I did. Yep.
Do you want to give us a little update
sure,
on that? Real quick? Tangent.
Total tangent.
I'm totally like
we got okay. Come 100% back.
100% on this.
Let's come back to Chinese manufacturing. But so talked to Trek for like an hour on Friday, and it was a great conversation.
Hour. Wow.
Yeah, I know, long time. Explained everything, and at the end of it, they were like, well, we still think that the ultimate decision that we made, giving you the 20% discount was kind of the right thing or whatever. They want to take a look at the stem, so I'm going to mail it off to them.
Sure.
And then, and I was like, and I think the video that I made was super fair. And they're like, yeah, that's, whatever. And so I think it's like I think nothing's going to come of this. But
they've got their, your stem though, right?
I'm going to
So all the evidence, they're going to just basically go melt that down and say it never happened?
And bury it.
How funny would that be? In the next email, be like, hey, would you mind sending us that stem? Be like, I just did. Be like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. What stem? Yeah, what stem are you talking about?
Yeah.
So an hour-long conversation, that's what you got, was you're going to send it back to them, they're going to take a look at it.
Yeah, they're going to call me with their engineers looking at it, and they're going to be, we're all going to say the same thing. It's like, there's a little bit of corrosion here, and the stem snapped here. Like, okay, like, that's...
What are their engineers?
Okay. But
the
so
stem
they did
looks
say,
broken.
they told me some stuff like, there's only like 1 or 2 year warranty on this part anyway. It's like, they weren't being defensive. They were totally cool about everything. And so, I don't know. I definitely came away from the conversation like, it was just like a good conversation. Like, good person, good people. They try hard to not let stuff like this happen. And they, like, this was the situation here. And, what's the expectation? They're going to, like, go give me a whole new bike? I mean, that'd be great, but it's...
Specialized did for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, right back, I'm like, well, I made this video and I stand by everything in there. Like, this was my experience as it happened. Like, both of us, I feel like we're like being honest and straightforward and like not angry, right? I mean, ask me, when I'm screaming in pain when my shoulder was hurting, like I could have been angrier. But
what's going to ultimately make you happy?
I don't know.
I mean, you can't undo what happened. You can't undo your shoulder. What's ultimately like? What's the threshold? Like, I'm good with that. 20% off a stem that cost them. That's crap. They should be giving you a brand new stem at a minimum. That's to them that cost them probably $40-$50 at most.
I don't have this like this would make me happy, because right now I want, like the great thing about having this YouTube channel is like I want people to say like here's this experience.
Yeah.
And if now Trek's like, we're gonna give you $1 million, I'll be like, now are they a good company? I don't think so. Like
that's true.
I just don't feel like there's this like what's gonna make you happy. I don't know if there's like this answer to that question. I just want people to know what my experiences are. I want them to watch the video and take from that what they want to. Like, hey, is Trek a horrible company? No, that's not what I say in the video. It's just that this was my experience.
This sounds like a really funny like breakup conversation where you're like, it's
It's
not
you.
that I
It's
not
you,
that
it's
I
not
hate
me.
her. It's not. I mean, I want her to be happy like later. It's just like, I mean, it just didn't work out for us. And then we called, and she still didn't admit what was wrong with it. But it's like
they've had like 6 or 7 opportunities now to do something, anything, and the best they could pull out of their back pocket was 20% off of a new stem. That's the best they could do.
I looked at it like, hey, he was basically trying to, I think that he's in charge of customer service, right?
Yeah.
And so he's looking at it like, okay, well, the reason why it took us a long time to get back to you was this was a very busy time of year and people were on vacation. Okay, fine, whatever. And then the next piece is like, okay, well, the reason that this wasn't put in as a like defect claim or whatever it was because the mechanic like immediately went for the 20% off thing because this thing was old and out of warranty, right? So that was like, so there could have been different decisions made along the way, but all these different decisions all added up to me having kind of a horrible experience.
Yeah.
So is it their fault? Man, I mean, I think companies make mistakes, but that's what I said in the video. Like, this is what happened to me.
I mean,
this
I
is
could
the
understand
situation.
if it was a screw that was over torqued or something like you had a crash or hit something and there
But
was like,
breaking in half
damage.
is
But like the way that it broke, like you literally have to look at the picture to understand. Like it's like it was sandwiched together and then it just like came apart. And
well, it literally the metal split in half.
Yeah.
So
like literally the metal itself.
I'll talk to the, I'm sending this off, and then another week or two, I'll talk to the engineering team, and I'll let you guys know. We'll update this conversation on the podcast. I don't really feel like making another video because I don't feel like my stance has changed.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth your time either. I mean, like honestly, like your YouTube channel is like fun for you, and I feel like this conversation for you has gotten to the point with Trek where it's just like it's not gonna like massively change your decision going forward. Like you're not gonna buy a Trek. Yeah. It's not like they're gonna be like, oh, what if we gave you like 50% off a Trek? You'd be like, that's okay, I'm not gonna get a Trek.
I know, right? I'm like, I don't know.
I think you just need to stay firm on the not getting a Trek to send the message to them.
Right. Like, send that one person not buying a Trek. No, I mean, that's the
when
thing
your YouTube channel has 100,000 followers, people will go back to that video and be like, "Oh wow!" It's like
no, it's just one of those things where it's like the Madone looks like a great bike. Like there's all these bikes that look good from Trek.
They do actually,
but
the Madone does look nice.
I don't know. I mean, if they're like gonna give me a bike for free, I'd probably take it. I mean, but at the same time,
go and buy a BMC too.
Yeah, it's just take it and sell it.
Sell it to buy a BMC.
Little things, just like a formal apology. Hey Matt, how about you make a video? We'll come on there and we want to formally apologize.
Yeah.
And hey Matt, you had some medical expenses that were tied to this. Maybe we can help you out with a little bit of that. And by the way, here's his new stem. We're really sorry. That shouldn't have happened. We know it was old,
but I already bought the stem. So what are they? I mean, I just feel like
still, you know what I mean. It was at least the notion of them like trying to do the right thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just
I could almost have added to your video as like the exact opposite experience when I was with Specialized. For years ago when I made sure that everything I bought was Specialized for a while because they, took one of my bikes. I accidentally pulled out the stop from the internal cabling.
Yeah.
Sent it back to me with a crack in the frame, and we sent it back to them saying like, "Hey, you guys cracked my frame," and they sent me a new that year's new model Shiv.
Yeah,
Like,
you got it great.
no question. There was no like, hey, 50% off this shiv. No, it was like, here's your free shiv.
Yep.
Wow.
That year model.
Trek is one of the
I was
four
not
biggest,
a kid who could have afforded that at that time.
They're
That's
one of
for
the
sure.
4 biggest bike manufacturers in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
They've got pretty deep pockets, I'm assuming.
They're having a good year this year too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's just so much more that they could have done here. And if it weren't Matt LeGrand, internet, YouTube star, and it was just some schmo like
that's the other part
me.
where it's like I don't want to be like, oh, I made this video, and now they're like, here you go, because you made a video. Like, okay, well then what about the person that
makes
doesn't
it
have
super
access to it?
genuine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, back to China. So
So I'm buying everything from China.
so let's
you
make
go.
sure that we don't make this podcast too political about China.
China stem or Trek stem.
Yeah. I don't know. I would trust.
Let's
Or
see.
is it one and the same?
I'm
Let's
trusting
see
them
how
about the
hot
same
button
amount.
we can make this conversation.
So yeah, so I mean, I got the new stem on that bike, but like, do you trust it? Like, I don't trust that thing out on the road, or especially descending.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm going to make another video using the Trek, and so people will see me riding this bike, but it's not going to be like, you're going to see as much as I ride on this thing, and it's going to be like 20 miles or less. It's not going to be much riding.
That's a tough situation to be in, because you're like, dude, this bike was not cheap, and it's still worth quite a bit of money.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Minus, well,
I'm happy. I had it on the trainer this morning, and I was like, this is where this thing belongs.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what it seems like.
That's where my old TT bike lives now. I think old TT bikes just get retired to the trainer if you're a triathlete. That's just where they go.
That's the version out to pasture.
That's just where they go. Yeah.
So I know you, and I know your conscience, and I know how you
Right.
don't want to put somebody in a situation where they're going to have a similar experience,
Right.
and you would feel terrible, as would all of us sitting here, if something should happen.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that bike? Trainer, is that it? You're not
Yeah, I
going to
think
sell
so.
it? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I did think long and hard, because there was people that even after that Trek video were like, hey, I'll buy that bike from you. Like, they were like, that looks like, yeah, well, I mean, you fix the problem, you fix the broken piece, and it's a nice bike, and it's all decked out with, I mean, it makes sense. Like, you could take the components off, and so, I mean, there's so many different ways to do it, right?
Yeah.
But, so people were like, yeah, that thing looks pretty good. And it was top of the line, and it's a very fast bike. It's slippery in the wind for sure. But I
You
will
were quick on
say,
that, yeah.
so I'm super tempted to be like, here you go.
Maybe Trek would want to buy that back for you.
Yeah. No, if Trek bought it, that would be the one thing. Maybe they'd be like, hey,
That'd be
we'll
good.
buy that bike from you.
Yeah.
Then I'd be like, good, you're helping me get rid of something that really don't want anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. All right, back to China.
Yeah.
Back to China.
Anyway, back to things that definitely are not hot topics.
Just out of curiosity, are there any other places in the world? I know that China is kind of like the hotbed for like all things carbon manufacturing. There's a lot of major manufacturing companies that go there and they work with the factories and have factories there. There are a lot of knockoff things over there, but are there any other countries in the world that are known for this kind of stuff?
Isn't there Taiwan? I believe Taiwan.
Possibly.
I don't know.
I think.
Maybe. I don't know enough about that to give you an honest answer.
Yeah,
We
I just
should-
know China in the cycling industry is the big one. I mean, that's always the thing is China wheels.
So
yeah.
consensus around the table. Are you guys buying Chinese wheels?
No, and
The odds are
this would be a
probably
great
in your
favor,
favor.
right? Where
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
mean, the odds are like, even if you told me 99.9% of the time this wheel's fine, that 0.1% is going to be like a $20,000 medical bill
yeah,
potentially.
but honestly, there's no manufacturing company that's gonna. I mean, like,
Yeah,
like
but
take
it's-
Envy, right? Like we all like Envy wheels.
Yeah,
They're
but I'd
great.
still like
but
at least to have some
Person
chance at being reimbursed for
well, I'm sure Envy. If I'm guessing it's like, hey, we'll replace the wheels. If there's a problem. I don't know.
I know that
people
doesn't
I know
Envy
that
have like a lifetime warranty on their wheels? Like, I think you
far
might
as
have
I
to
know.
pay a little bit of extra money, maybe. But like,
Yeah.
if something happens, you just send it back and they send you a new wheel set.
And like Head is good,
Yep.
and all these companies that are, that we would all kind of like the stuff that comes to mind. Even like those Flow cycling wheels.
Yeah.
they've been
Flow's
fantastic.
great wheels.
Yep.
Flow's
Yeah.
wonderful. And I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious about what I buy in the cycling industry and where it's manufactured. I'm trying to not buy anything that's manufactured in China. I'm not sure if I'm
That's
doing an awesome job of
tough,
it, but this
yeah.
last year I'm trying to
Right.
do my best with that. Yeah.
That's a really tough thing to do.
Yeah, it is super hard.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Matt?
I was just gonna say, I think as we get older and like you have more disposable income, and it's just for me, it's like just pay extra.
Peace of mind
get-
is worth that extra bit
Yeah,
of money.
it's like
Oh yeah, if you could get $500 in a decent reassurance that like, hey, you're probably not going to have this thing crack on you going downhill. I mean, I will gladly pay that extra $500.
When I was 20 or whatever it was, and that was
very
like,
different story at that time.
You can either have this wheel or pay rent for like 2 months.
Yeah,
it's like,
or not eat for this month. Be like, okay, this is an easy decision.
Totally different, but right now, it's just I think we're at a different point in our life, and I'm like, I'm just gonna get something that's safe. So
sure, yeah, quality control, man. I'm telling you, there's something there too. So frames, same thing.
Yeah, same situation on frames. I totally understand the fact that a lot of manufacturers, I'm thinking of like Cannondale or whatever it is, that they have these frames, and maybe Cannondale's not doing it anymore. But it seemed like for a while it was like, do you want the same Cannondale frame but just without the Cannondale on it? It's like you can go buy this at Alibaba or whatever.
Yep.
So I don't know which brands do it, but it seems to be the case where China would basically manufacture a frame and sell it to 3 or 4 different companies.
Yeah.
So
what about stuff like bars, stem, and C-post?
I mean, I still am in the camp of like, I'm not going to. I have no problem with other people that do it. I see so much success from people that do it and have no problem with it. It's like buy the Vision handlebars or the same. I mean, they're literally the exact same ones.
Sure.
From China for a quarter of the price. But then, I'm not even looking at the ones from China. So I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not. There's too much to risk. They're not knowing where it came from, not knowing what kind of quality control it went through, not having any kind of recourse if something does go wrong. There's probably no warranty to it.
No.
It's just there's too many variables there for me personally to want to have to go down that avenue. I want to know where it came from because the way that we ride, if something fails, that could end like catastrophically.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it to me.
Right.
I'd rather pay a few extra bucks to know that I'm going to be at least moderately safer out there. So
yeah, I'll take an extra percentage of safety there for
sure.
Yeah,
gotcha. What other red flags? I've got one I think that we can put out there.
Go for it.
Is this red flag cycling?
It's cycling related. Well,
like equipment or on the
human
side?
The human
I was
side.
gonna say we haven't talked about the human side, which is probably
we got
more
a
fun.
lot of that.
Yeah.
You're out on a ride. For me personally, I was on a ride for was it day 2 of our training camp 2 or 3 years ago. We were down in Palm Springs, and I started to notice on one of the last long climbs of the day that my heart rate was going up and up and up, and I'm looking down at my watts, and my watts are going down and down and down.
Push harder.
It was exactly.
Don't wimp out. Just don't wimp out.
Velomani Rule 5. There you go.
It was plenty toasty warm out,
Yeah.
and I started getting goosebumps on my arms.
Yeah.
Cardiac drift.
Well, the goosebumps is like a next piece. It's like, okay, well, heart rate is one thing, and then it's starting to get a little bit scary when you have other symptoms.
The watts that I was able to put into the bike were going down as my heart rate was increasing. So sorry for all the notifications. We can probably turn that off now that Lance is gone. Sorry about that. But yeah, it was a little bit of signs of a little heat exhaustion. Probably bordering on getting into some heat stroke situations. What are you guys doing when you start to see some of these red flags? What's the next step?
Even in a race situation, sometimes you need to slow down.
At what point in time do you just stop?
I think I'm the wrong person to ask.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Well, when I went through this, we were still probably a good hour and a half away. Like we're kind of in the middle of nowhere doing a long climb.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wanted to get to the top of the climb, so I went ahead and went up to the top, knowing that I'd had teammates up there. I needed to let them know what was going on. There was a fountain there, so I was able to fill that up and like douse myself and drink extra water.
That's gonna be your biggest one, is find something you can pour on yourself to start to cool down.
But that's that particular situation. Who was it? Sarah
True.
went down. Sarah True.
Last 400 meters of the race.
Yeah, and an Ironman last 400 meters.
That's terrible.
So that's a definite red flag where you're getting into kind of like a scary territory.
Yeah.
How do you guys handle that, and what do you do?
Well, this is a problem. Is like in this moment as a medical provider, I could be like, well, clearly it's find safety, stop, probably call somebody and say like, hey, it's time to stop.
Yeah.
But like, when you're in that situation, all of us being endurance athletes here, like you go primal brain, which is like get through it,
get to the finish line,
get to the finish line, just go to the
like,
finish line.
There's
and
nothing else in your brain except for like, I'm going to go to that finish line.
Yeah, like
over
in
there.
those primal moments, I will admit, I do notice all of a sudden it's like, oh, whatever effort we're at, we got to back off a little bit. Like, we got to back off. So
if Lance were here, he would talk about that tunnel vision he had, where he
just
was
back
like,
off a little bit, and then it
slow
widens back
down,
out. There you go.
You can see a little bit more, and
I think, well, my St. George example's bad because I was cramping up. I just laid on the ground and then decided to
still finished.
The effort dropped for sure. The effort went from running to laying down. So I think because the question is if you're on a bike ride, you are like 2 hours away from home.
Yeah.
This is the dangerous part is if you're, if you just stop and you don't have access to somebody getting out to you quick, sometimes the better option almost would be to slow down to where you feel safe and then continue riding. Because if you stop and you have no water, you have no food, and you have no cell service, you may be on a ticking timeline of where you can get back to somewhere where you at least have cell service.
Yep.
So it comes down to you knowing yourself well enough to know, okay, how bad am I right now? Yeah. Like, am I to where I shouldn't be on a bicycle, or am I just starting to feel these symptoms?
I know for me, it was about halfway up when I really started to notice this. I'm like, something's not right. And like you start like doing the math. I'm like, yeah, that's the problem right there. But there's that primal brain that kind of kicks in, and everybody was hammering up, and like we have
you just drop off the group. You just need to.
I let them go, and like like about halfway up, like some of the guys that would always like finish behind me came around me like, hey, you all right? And I'm like, yeah. And I didn't even say anything to them at the time because like you're kind of a little bit in denial. You're like, this isn't really happening, is it? And, I finally get to the top and I said, hey, this is what's going on. Like it was like, oh, let's get you this, that, and the other. And they were cool about it. And thankfully for me, it was a long downhill. It was like a 4.5 mile descent.
You probably cooled off nicely on that, actually, which is big.
They all hung out up there for a little bit so I could get some extra fluids in me.
But the biggest thing you could actually do is if those people are passing you, is just tell them the truth and say, I need water right now. Like if you got anything, give it to me. Yeah.
I did have some water still. It was, because it was so warm. The water was warm. But it was just, I was overheated. And it's kind of funny too because I mean it was warm but it wasn't hot. I'd say it was like 88, 89 degrees, maybe 90 degrees somewhere in there. And I was so used to that when I lived in Southern California. I used to ride when it was triple digits just because I was heat acclimated. And I'm like, this can't be happening. And it was.
We're terrible here in the Pacific Northwest. It was like low 90s last week, and I was like, it's the surface of the sun right now. It's so bad. I can't do this.
Just if you have to, just stop once you start to notice some of these symptoms, and it's probably a good thing for you to know what these symptoms are. Tonk was going to come on and do the Med Minute, but actually today was his very first day of Med class.
Tonk!
Wow. Yeah, he's official now. So
another Tonk update. Tonk is going for, I think it's the Mount Spokane KOM.
Yeah,
I believe. The week before, so like he's got fatherhood right around the corner here, and his class has just started. So he is. We have seen the
last gasp of his fitness.
I know. I still think he's still gonna figure it out. He's gonna figure it out.
He'll fight it as long as any of us. Yeah,
he will.
Yeah. But he is gonna come back. He's gonna do the Med Minute, and he
was he gonna talk about dehydration?
Well, he was gonna talk about heat exhaustion versus heat stroke. So I think maybe we can put an earmark on this one and save it for him to kind of give us our little Med Minute with the that'd be cool. Thing.
We actually did have I remember we kind of delved into pretty specifically in one of the sports classes I was taking the difference between the two, and the unfortunate truth is actually the line between those two is a pretty gray area because you're talking about a lot of perceived symptoms too.
Yeah.
And the heat. I'm going back to Endure, Alex Hutchinson's book, but talking about like heat exhaustion is very much your brain's attempt to protect the body as much as possible, and that line can switch quickly. Like that, you may think that line's a far way away, and that line can come pretty quick. Yeah, there's not like a nicely timed equation for exactly how long before those symptoms get really bad.
It was pretty nuts for me when I was looking down at my Garmin. I'm looking at my power numbers and I'm looking at my heart rate. I'm like, that is just really wrong. Because I was putting down watts that would normally equate to a heart rate of about 100 to 115 BPM. I was at like 175 to 180.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, my watts, no joke, were like, I don't know, like 150 watts or something like that. I'm like, this is not good. I mean, like my heart rate should be way lower, or I should be putting out like 350 to 400 watts for quite some time to get up the hill chasing people down. It was just very surreal to see that happening. And then all of a sudden you start to feel cold and like, that's not right. That red flag.
Well, and then the scary part too, and this is really diving deep into physiology here, but this is why these red flags are important, is because so when you're talking about like electrolyte depletion, like towards that pure dehydration type state, you're actually talking about then the cell's energy transfer starts to get worse and worse and worse. So that's where I think that's my only issue is like, oh God, where's that line of where you actually get off the bike if you're not with people?
Yeah.
Like if you're by yourself, and the only reason I bring that up is because I know Jake just used his example. Cassie will crack up at this one. When we did a training camp in Bend, I think I told a story where I was out in the middle of Prineville Reservoir. I saw Dr. Hamill just riding out at Prineville Reservoir. I almost wanted to comment on that and see, like, did you see a human the entire time? Because there's the ride from Bend to Prineville Reservoir is you go through a section where there's just nobody.
I've done it before. Yep.
Nothing and nobody.
Yep.
And I got severely dehydrated at one point there where I was putting out like probably like 60 to 80 watts and it felt hard.
Yeah.
I was going like 12 miles an hour on a TT bike for a little bit. And it did come to the point where I was like, I got another hour and a half, zero water, nothing. And I was like, this is going to be bad. And that was where, I'm out of cell reception.
Yeah.
So what I did was I just put it in my lowest gear and I was like, I'm just going to pedal.
Yep.
I'm just going to pedal and I'm just going to hope that if anything bad happens, they find me.
Eventually.
Yikes. But yeah,
Scary.
that's where I think the best approach, if you're talking pure survival situation, you got to drop your energy demands.
Yeah.
Because you get more and more depleted, your cells are not able to basically cooperate with you like you want them to. So yeah.
Any other red flags?
What about back to bike stuff? Because that's what this podcast is supposed to be about. But no, I mean like
I was dying on a bicycle.
You hear your chain, you hear grinding. Like what red flags would you say? Like, hey, go take your bike to see a mechanic. What's the big stuff?
First, ask yourself when was the last time you lubed and cleaned your chain or cleaned and lubed your chain. But yeah, if you're starting to hear like grinding stuff or crunchy stuff, that's usually a sign that like your chain is getting into super stretch mode, and it's always a heck of a lot cheaper to replace a $30 to $50 chain than it is to have to replace a $300 cassette and chain rings that might cost you a couple $100. I mean, that's just kind of a bummer having to replace that stuff prematurely.
Yeah.
So chain stretch is real. It happens. You just go buy the little chain checker stretch tool thing. You can get them from Park Tool, Pedro's. There's a couple others as well that make those, and just stay on top of that stuff. I know that we did talk about this last episode in terms of like the newer SRAM stuff. You can check for the SRAM access stuff with a typical chain checker.
Someone sent that.
I think it was. Yeah, we did. Somebody post something up there. I haven't had a chance to get back to that yet, just because I've been all over the place. But I had a conversation with them off the record. They said that that's kind of a good gauge, but it's not exact. So it's still, they don't have a perfect solution. The ones that and I went back and I checked the email conversation that I was having with them. Was it the Eagle 12-speed drivetrains? They use such a hard metal that they just don't stretch, and it's usually, torsionally speaking, is where they get the stretch from, and that's where you start to see the wear. But it's a good thing because they last a heck of a lot longer, but they are tough to check. But if you're getting those noises, that's not a good thing. But the chain one that you bring up a good point, and talking about the drivetrain, one thing that you can look for that can get kind of dangerous, and I had somebody in here recently saying, hey, like I keep getting chain suck, and what that basically is like when you're trying to freewheel,
right,
and you like maybe backpedal a little bit, and the free body hub has like bearings and little pawls in there and whatnot. If you can't backpedal freely and it's starting to stick a little bit, the chain will actually kind of suck back up into the drivetrain. That could get kind of sketchy, especially if you're just coasting and your chain is starting to kind of suck back in there. You don't want that chain to all of a sudden get
locked in,
and all of a sudden you're dealing with a skidding tire and parts and pieces breaking.
Well, your back wheel should keep going, and you should be okay to get to a stop or whatever, but you wouldn't be able to pedal forward.
Correct.
You'd basically get locked in a certain spot. But what happens is a lot of times people, they at least do a little bit of that back pedal because they want to get their feet in a comfortable position. And then that is enough for the chain to slack, do its whip slack, and then drop all the way inside on usually it's always the inside where it gets locked up. If it drops the outside,
or worse, you could have even jump off the rear cassette. It can even go past the limit screws. And you just don't want it to be back down there between the cassette and the spokes. And
I see what you're saying.
And then all of a sudden you're going to get a wheel that's locked up, and that's
pretty bad.
Yeah, it's not good times.
Very, very
and
bad.
usually what that is that your free body hub, the bearings in the wheel, all that fun stuff needs to be taken apart and needs to be serviced and cleaned, and that's stuff that needs to happen like once every year to 2 years, depending upon how often you're riding. So that all should be nice and smooth and clean. And a lot of times if you pick up your back wheel and then you just start backpedaling your crank, if you will, and all of a sudden you notice that the rear wheel is going in reverse pretty quickly, pretty easily, that it's starting to get a little sticky in there.
The free hub's not disengaging.
Exactly. And or if you're just if you put the wheel on the ground now and you're going to backpedal and you notice that the chain is going from the chain rings back to the cassette, and you notice that it's starting to dip down in there, that's pretty much because the stickiness of the free body hub is causing things to not.
That's a good thing. That's a good red flag to look for people.
Probably could have said that a little bit more eloquently, but
no. I think that's good. I think that's fine.
Yeah. Any red flags that you guys can think of in terms of like a service thing that you've run across?
I think anytime you hear noises, like, don't just ignore it. Don't just turn your headphones up louder.
Bottom bracket being the biggest one.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, try to play detective a little bit, and the bike is not the most complex machine in the world. So take a look. Is it because you're cross chaining? Well, you don't necessarily need to go see a mechanic for that. Like, just stop cross chaining.
Yep.
But my point is like, okay, well, if you play a little bit of a detective and you kind of say like, okay, what could it be? Remember I couldn't figure it out. What was like one of the last rides I did? It was like, oh, my cassette was loose. Yeah. I was like, how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, it happens.
But you play detective and you can say, okay, well, the noise is coming from the rear wheel. Okay, well, there's only so much there, and you can kind of figure stuff like that out. But then if you can't, like, get help, because then you're going to learn something too. So
there are noises that the bike is supposed to make.
Yeah.
Like your free body hub, when you're coasting, it's going to have a certain sound to it. And more times than not, you're going to know that sound pretty stinking well.
Right.
If that sound starts to change a little bit, maybe it has something to do with that being gunked up. Another one is like a lot of us are on disc bikes now. You know what it sounds like when you're grabbing the brakes and you're starting to slow down. If that all of a sudden sounds like it's got like a little metal crunchiness going on in there, odds are your brake pads are done, and you need to change those things out, because there's going to come a point in time where the pad's completely gone, and now you're metal on metal, and not only are you destroying your rotors, but you're not going to be able to stop the way that you're supposed to stop, and that could be bad. Don't want that to happen.
Stopping is good.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think if there's any other noises that we could throw out there, but those are like the two primary noises that you hear on a very consistent basis. Another red flag is if you're riding on carbon wheels and they are rim brakes, do know that there's a heat tolerance there. And when it gets hot outside, or when you're doing a lot of climbing, and all of a sudden you're going to go do a lot of descending, know how much you weigh, know what the specs are for your wheels, and really make sure that you're using the right kind of brake pad, carbon specific, and monitor if you start to get like a pulsing feeling when you're coming down and you're descending, there's a good chance that your wheels are starting to actually break down, and the carbon and the resins are starting to heat up or delaminate, or worse yet, like they're going to fail. I've seen and watched videos of people kind of reenacting the process that they went through. There was one in particular. Gosh, do you guys watch the YouTube video or the YouTube channel? The guy from Australia, I can't remember his name.
Durian Rider.
Maybe that's who it is.
That's the
absolute jerk.
He's a weirdo.
No,
there's another guy named Cam.
Okay.
There's another guy named Cam something.
Yeah, he's actually riding a BMC now too.
The Zwifter.
The guy with
Zwift.
The guy. There's a guy that won like the Zwift.
Yeah,
not that guy.
Cam's
There's another guy
different
named.
guy.
This is a super cool guy.
Yeah,
though.
he's super cool.
But anyway, he did a video on a guy that he connected with who was riding. Was it Mavic? Some Mavic. Yeah, Mavic rim brake wheels. I can't remember which one it was, which wheel set. The guy was a little bit heavier, but he was within protocol of what Mavic said, and he was doing a long descent, and the wheels basically failed. They exploded on him when he was going downhill. And
was he okay?
He doesn't remember anything. There was pictures his buddy took, and he's fine now. Yeah. But he was knocked unconscious. He broke some stuff and whatnot. And they showed pictures of the wheel, and the wheel was in 3 pieces. It basically completely failed on him, and he went over the bars, and it was a pretty scary thing. But
was that during video testing? Like they were videoing him doing it?
No, he's just riding with some of his buddies. They don't have the actual video of it when it happened. His buddies were taking pictures like after the fact, the aftermath, if you will. But he kind of went through that whole process, and it really boils down to like, you got to be super careful when you're dealing with rim brake bikes, and especially if you're a heavier person, that inertia can really start to
absolutely
wear on that wheel. So anyway, just something to red flag think of.
Definitely.
Yeah, totally.
One last one, and then we can, unless you guys have something else, we can move on. What about people that get a little bit too much into their respective sport?
Yeah, this was actually
that's a good one.
This was actually the red flag I was going to want to bring up last too. Yeah, this is so. I think when we talk about these sports, I think we need to realize that they're addictive. Like very. I think it's pretty obvious for anybody who's been in these sports long enough. Yeah.
For me, I would absolutely love, like Jordan, I would love to be able to put in 90-hour months. That would be fantastic. But you know what? I probably wouldn't be married anymore. No. The cycling lab down here would be shuttered. And I would just be out riding my bike and not have much of stuff to connect into. Some people can make that work in their lives. But, for me, there's just like there's a number. And I've always said that 10 hours for me works well because that's about as much as I can generally get away with in terms of like being able to connect with my family.
Yeah. I think kids probably chop your training volume by 50%.
I think it's on
average.
A lot of that too is different stages in life too, where it's like,
well, look at Lance.
Look at Lance.
That's true.
I just remember
the backside of that. Yeah.
I remember, just being single, no kids.
Yep.
And like running was my life. And that was good. And I wanted to limit it even more. I was like, can I go to a hut somewhere and just run?
I've considered that. Really, I'd be fine with living in my car. Done it before. I think I could be there for a bit. So.
I've definitely lived in my car and just run. So, I mean, it can be, obviously we all know it can be super obsessive, compulsive, but different times of your life, it's kind of okay to do that. But then I would say, ask yourself, can you be a better person if you are maybe making yourself a little bit more rounded out,
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes,
I'm curious, like not too long ago,
right?
You did a sub 10-hour Ironman.
Yeah,
that was a lot of training that you had to put into that, and you've got your own personal business. You've got a wife. You've got kids.
Wife, kids.
How did you hold it all together? Because
they all hated him.
You probably walked a pretty thin line there.
I think first of all, you get everyone on board, right? Yeah. Where it's like, I'm going to be gone. Actually, and that particular setup, I took Fridays off of work to get some big days in.
Yeah.
And you still have to have everyone on board.
Yep.
Because it's a lot of training. So I took, you have these, 3 balls in the air, right? Where it's like training, family, work. Like if you're going to throw one a little bit higher, the other one's coming down, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, which one did I let slip? And that was work. In that situation. Family's like, yep, it's not going to, you can only take so much from there. But and so now I'm on the completely opposite side of the schedule. Like work's crazy, working tons, and just not training very much.
Yeah.
And that's okay, I think. I just want to balance would be better.
Yeah.
How do you get that balance? I can't do it.
So at what point in time are there red flags that go up that like, hey, maybe somebody needs to, help me out here, or I'm doing things that are like problematic?
Well, I think the big one is like you're not sleeping, right?
Yeah.
Like when you work straight through the weekend.
Yeah. Well,
for example,
I think the red I think the red flags need to be more based around the lack of balance, really, which is it's like you said, when one ball starts to get higher, I think the ones we can talk about directly on here are like those training red balls. Or red flags.
Well, there's too many ball references on the podcast.
Red ball's very bad.
Go see your doctor.
Yes,
it's cream for that.
Yeah. But no, I think there's the big ones with training, and I'll talk specifically that one because me not being the one here without the kids, I know that has never taken up a lot of my time.
Yeah, but I feel like in the same regard, it's like even in college when I didn't have kids, it was like you could do well at school. You could do well at having a girl or girlfriends, or you could do well at running track and field, cross country.
Exactly.
And those are the three. And
just different balls.
And like,
but
whenever one was going well, something else was going.
Something else was
and it was
hard.
always like you're running great if you're not dating anyone.
Exactly.
Whatever it is. So
I actually find though that I think I think some of my better race results have actually come where there was a little bit more balance in the life. Because the problem with training becoming everything is then, and I mean, God, man, I can think of weekends where just moved somewhere new, didn't have a ton of friends, wasn't a lot of social life. So it was, and I've always worked, like always. So it's always been work and training. And then when training really starts to dominate that, you'll hit those, done with training on Saturday, and you lay on the couch for 8 hours and then just pass out. Yeah. Not a good life balance. Very dark place to be depression-wise, too. And that's...
Lance is in Flagstaff, and I went to Flagstaff and just trained, and I was literally not
And I remember you telling me these stories. Yeah.
And you're just like... you get really bored.
You do. And the scary thing is when it becomes... Because right now, I love training racing because I have other things in my life that are way more important than training right now. Yeah. Definitely. Like... Professional triathlon's like a tongue-in-cheek thing for me right now. It's like almost a joke.
It's good. You have a good balance because you do have so much going on. You do have so many friends that are doing training stuff. You go and you meet people to, you might not be swimming with someone when you're at Horseshoe Lake or whatever, but you're swimming with them in the same water.
Exactly.
And same thing. You go to run on the trails, and you might not be running with Ethan and I, but you're meeting us over there and you're starting with us or whatever it is. And so I think it's a good balance that way because you have that little bit of social outlet to it as well. So
and that's why I think the red flag for if you're also talking to people like early mid-20s and you're like, I really want to be fast. It's like, okay, you got to understand that like that's not a pretty picture always. And I think anybody who hasn't seen this documentary yet probably should. The Weight of Gold. Kind of a dark documentary, very dark documentary. They talk about there's some suicide and some depression discussion in there. There is, so don't, I would actually say don't watch it with kids. To be completely honest, I don't think Phelps, the direction of the documentary they took is good for kids to be sitting there watching it.
Gotcha.
But it was, you look at that and you're like, these should be very happy people. Apollo Ono, Michael Phelps, and Shaun White should be super happy. They're awesome at their sports. They won a lot of gold medals and they made money.
Yep.
And that's not the case.
Yeah.
Not. So I think when you lose balance in life, the end result does seem to be depression. Yeah. Kind of across the board. So that's it's a good documentary to watch though, I think, just to realize what some of those people go through.
Yeah. If you start to lose connection with things that you love, i.e. family members and friends and things of that nature, that's a problem. If you're starting to struggle with your career, that's a problem.
Yep.
If you start to struggle with maybe even some like health issues because you're overdoing it, that's a problem. So, I mean, those would be the red flags that I would throw out there. Is there anything else that you guys can add to that equation?
No, that's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, look at medical symptoms. Are you falling asleep? Are you, some of those things are like, oh, this could be dangerous. You don't want to fall asleep driving somewhere or.
No.
Anybody ever had any issues with any of these things?
I think we all struggle with overtraining and overworking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's also the moment where as soon as you have convinced yourself you're too busy to do something, I think you need to look at how you structure that. And this is something that I've had to realize myself because I used to complain about all the time, but like if you're too busy, like you're the one that actually controls that situation. Yes. So it's like, I think with training, I used to always think like, God, I'm just too tired and exhausted all the time. And then I would just say that every single week at the same day. And I'd be like, well,
constant negative self-talk.
Yeah. And then I kind of realized, I was like, okay, so what's the one consistent here? I'm part of this equation and nobody else is. I didn't even have a coach at that time. So I was like, okay, there's nobody else forcing me to do what I'm doing to myself right now.
Yeah.
And you got to look at that and be like, okay, this is the
time to make a change.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be that moment to make a change because that's no way to go through life, feeling overwhelmed and busy every single day of your life. If you feel overwhelmed and busy every single day of your life, you need to look at your life and change it.
Yeah.
It is kind of nice to have a barometer for that, though. And for me, that's my wife.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not
you need an external barometer.
Exactly. She's not one to back off from telling me, like, hey, you need to, back off a little bit, or you need to cool it a little bit, or you need to spend a little bit more time with the family. Like,
we need to go fishing this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell you right now, my wife's worried about how much work stress and how much work I'm doing. Like, she's a great barometer for that as well because, like I'm usually so like, oh yeah, this is great, and now I'm like, oh, I have so much work to do.
Yeah,
Evan's barometer is let's go run more, let's go swim more, let's go ride more.
Well, that was always the barometer, and I'm starting to slowly. I think this year's the first year. I'm sure Cassie's rolling her eyes at even hearing that, but I'm starting to slowly try to change that mindset of like, it's like as soon as you feel, man, I'm overwhelmed. You know what I should do tomorrow? 20-mile run. by myself. Nobody come with me. So you're like, why are you doing that to yourself? I don't know, but it seems like it needs to happen.
Treadmill staring at a wall.
Exactly.
Brick wall, preferably.
It's like, do you even enjoy doing that? No, not at all. I hate it. I hate every single second.
That was all good stuff, guys. Thank you very much. Let's get into one last thing. Evan, what you got?
Anybody who has a really good idea as to how to make Vancouver Lake in any combination, the roads around there, as fast as possible, please reach out to me personally.
As fast as possible?
Yes, on the bike. I've already got the run route decided, but the bike, we need to make it safe and as fast as possible.
So you're going to be just doing like laps of Vancouver Lake, Frenchman's Bar area?
I think for the shorter day on Saturday, it'd be safest for everybody to be doing laps close.
That makes sense.
Just for
Have you considered going from the Frenchman's Bar area? Maybe you start at Vancouver Lake, go out to Frenchman's Bar, then come back, and then maybe riding out to like Troutdale? Because once you get through the well, I guess you'd be on the I-5, and it's not too difficult to get to the I-5 bridge, crossing over and get onto Marine Drive. There's not much that's really going to slow you down in terms of traffic lights and things of that nature if you take the right little back roads there.
For the kids with the shorter distance racing, I'm going to keep it all around Frenchman's.
Yeah, I'm talking about you. You want to do an Ironman distance. You're looking for 112 miles, so I'm just trying to think of like what's going to be best for you.
Yeah,
we'll
see.
For you, you're looking at 10 laps out there.
That could be a little mundane and having to count that. Although you're pretty good.
I did 66 on something else, so yeah.
No, I even think when we did like that Olympic race out there, I was like, this is really boring.
Pretty good at being bored, though. That's for sure.
No, it's fine.
I just need to find
course
the fastest combination. Yeah. If you even told me there was like a 1 mile loop, but it's fast, I would do that 112 times if it was fast enough. So yeah. For everybody else, I'm trying to keep it slightly more interesting. But yeah,
I mean, I think the only problems are your turnaround points.
That's kind of,
and I think that was what really annoyed me.
Because that's where Jake's kind of right. Is God, if there just wasn't getting across the bridge, there's such a longer stretch you can stay.
Marine Drive, right? I mean, you can
be
just
awesome.
lock in.
Hammer on Marine Drive.
Not too much to get over the bridge though. There's little ways to kind of cut through. Like once you get back into Vancouver, hit that first light. It's like you turn right after the first light, and you're going back through the Port of Vancouver or whatever that is. You're not really hitting lights in there, and then you get to Columbia, and then you jump on the 5 bridge, and then you loop around behind Hooters, and you jump on. You jump on the Marine Path. It's really not too much to get through there with hitting lights and whatnot. So
no, we might need to consider that. We'll take a couple looks.
Food for thought.
Yep.
Well, I think you have to jump a curb or something like that on your TT bike.
No, I can make it happen. Yeah.
It's still got some tight turns for sure. And yeah.
Matt, one last thing.
I'm always making videos. YouTube.com/MLegrand. This week I barely got a video out. Like
I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. But what was the deal with the?
It might not be my best.
The pain cave thing.
Yeah, pain cave thing.
What was that all about?
I'm glad. I mean, they're all fun and great and stuff. But I was working so much, and my goal is always like try to get at least one video out per week. Like that's the limit. And it was Saturday late when I got. I mean, like that's usually like Friday is the deadline. Like that's the last time you get it. And I was like Saturday. Anyway, so it was a video where I'm checking out other people's pain caves, and I actually put out something. You probably saw this a long time ago, maybe like over a month ago. I sent something out that was just like, show me your pain cave, send me your pictures,
sure,
blah 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 blah. And people send stuff in. I got like a ton of things to went through, and I went through all the photos, looked at them.
A lot of international ones too.
Yeah, all kinds of cool stuff, and people were cool with it. And I was just like, "Hey, can I use your stuff in this video? And if you want me to, I'll send you some stickers to say thanks." Yeah. And I didn't put them. In some of the other videos that I've done like this where I've been like, all right, this is the #1 pain cave. Like I didn't do that just because I thought that
because we know that we would have won.
Because Evan would have won.
Absolutely.
Do you have a favorite though?
There was people need to say a pain cave is not like a cool workout spot. Like some of those people were like really nice, like hanged on the wall, super nice. No, too nice. Pain cave needs to be definitely not ventilated, real grungy looking, poorly framed pictures at best.
Does it need to be your basement in Ohio?
Yes. That is the original pain cave.
That's the original pain cave.
There wasn't an inch of insulation that entire place. It didn't get touched. I know my mom once was like, maybe we should finish that side of the basement. And me and all my friends were like, no, you were not touching that side of the basement. That side of the basement needs to stay like questionably, like if you breathe in something.
One of the videos was just like the corner of this like it looked like this shed or something.
Yes, that was
like
my favorite one.
Right? Because I was like,
pancake.
this looks like,
That's a
and I put that one in there because it wasn't the nicest, but at the same time, it was like brick wall.
Yeah.
And it was
Shoved
just like
in a corner.
shoved in the corner. And the guy had gone to the Tour de France and watched it, and he had like shimmied up a pole and stole one of the Tour de France signs and put it up in the cave.
That's a pancake.
That's awesome.
It's cool. It's a cool little
Poorly
spot.
framed pictures.
Yeah, totally. He had a map of Watopia.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I was like, that's cool. It was a great pain cave. But there were some super nice ones with like projectors.
Which are much better places to train. Absolutely.
Maybe. I don't know.
Good on you. But
what
it's
do
not
I
a
know?
pain cave.
What do I know?
Pain cave.
Yeah. So I felt a little put off by like kept referring to it as pain cave. Cave, and I just kind of feel like it's funny at first, but then it's like this is a little bit like drawn out, right?
It's like camping and then glamping.
Yeah,
just very different.
Quit saying glamping. No, I just feel like I kept starting to refer to it as like people's workout spots or whatever because it seems anyway.
Yeah, ours was also the only one with a name for the record.
Oh, that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
the Gaines Garage.
The Gaines Garage.
Hey, there you go.
I liked that.
You have to have a name.
Yeah, but there were some super nice things in there for sure. You will want to check out that video.
I will. I'll have to check that out. So
Yep. Add it to your list.
All right, Lance, last thing. All right, guys, I just finally found my pants, put them on. Oh, thought
seriously,
I lost
the guy
them.
sent us a picture of him naked in the middle of the freaking forest there in
Loved
Arizona.
it. I loved
Group
it.
of squirrels grabbed my pants and ran up the tree with them. I was chasing them around for an hour. I also got a flat.
I love the guy, though. That's
I took my e-bike.
Took my e-bike.
We miss you, Lance.
Yeah, come back, man.
Jake, one last thing.
My one last thing is going to be two last things.
You always do this. Sneaky.
I can do that if I want, right? No, maybe.
It's true. He doesn't want to edit the podcast.
100 days of cycling. 100 days in a row, consecutive days of cycling, minimum 1 hour each day, will start on August 19th. And it will finish, if you do the whole 100 days in a row, on November 26th, 2020. You know what day that is?
November 6th?
26.
Thanksgiving.
26?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Finishes on Thanksgiving. So you do your 100th day in a row on Thanksgiving.
On
Be
Thanksgiving.
thankful for finishing 100 days in a row, right?
You have to finish it before you eat the turkey.
I don't think I'm going to make it.
That's advised. Evan's over here yawning.
Oh God, yes. I'm definitely
much
not going to
L-tryptophan,
be.
you
I'm
already
definitely not going to be able to make it through 100 days
in a row.
consecutive.
So I'm going to do that, and we will basically monitor that on the Dialed Cycling Strava page.
Oh, cool.
So people can post stuff up there, and I'm going to come up with something for the folks that finish.
$1 million.
$1 million.
My money's on Jordan, Hannell, Robert. No, Robert's usually pretty smart with the training, and he'll take rest days when needed.
He does.
Yeah.
They do. Sorry.
Yeah, there's definitely. If Jake commits to it, no, because I think at some point Jake should have something family that's going to ruin a day. Yeah.
No, I'll do it. I've done it before.
Yeah, I think
Do you have to
there'll be a day though.
Tell your wife like
There'll be a
I'm
day.
going to try this thing.
She'll hear it on the podcast.
I'm actually going to put my money against Jake on this
There
one, which
you
is
go.
rare, but it has nothing to do with his ability to cycle here. I have the ability scheduling. He's going to miss a day that he's not thinking about. He's going to end up in a situation where the bike can't be handled.
I don't have any surgery scheduled, and even if I did, trainer rides do count as long as they are 1 hour.
Rebecca's going to knock him out, put him in the car, and they're going to go on a camping trip with
right.
0 bikes.
So what's the wager? If I finish this,
yeah, that's good.
and then if I don't, fill in the blank.
Pack of
I think we
LaCroix.
need to do dinner.
6-pack of LaCroix.
I think a dinner.
Dinner?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal.
Yeah.
If I screw up and I don't finish this,
Yep.
Rebecca and I will have you and Cassie over for dinner.
Ooh, yes.
Oh,
Other way
man.
around.
You
Yeah.
really lose on that one, Jake.
Other way around if you make it. Yeah.
You got it.
Yep.
It's a deal.
Trust me, Cassie's a much, much better cook than I am. So.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
I like
I'm
it.
in on that. So, but yeah, join us on that. If you're interested in joining that, just go onto Strava, search for Dialed Cycling, become a little. I don't know, add yourself to the group basically, and we'll start posting stuff up there about that, and we can all cheer each other on. Should be fun. My other one last thing is just real quick. Just want to say congrats to my wife. She did her longest run today.
Yeah, she
yesterday.
did.
She finished 16 miles.
Whoa, I didn't know that. That's
She's
awesome.
pushing forward right now. She's doing
she's
awesome.
got 4 more long runs. They keep
Yeah,
building
4
up
more.
before she's.
She got 3 over 20.
Yeah.
Is the goal. I may try to beg her to not do one of those over 20s.
She was mentioning that because she's getting a little hip tightness.
I
But
know.
she felt good this morning.
She's killing it.
16's good.
She's absolutely killing it.
Once you go over like 18, 19, 20, I'd say really once you get up over 20, things really start to feel beat up.
Yeah.
Really?
I call that the Jack Daniels theory when he always talked about like for whatever reason it's like over 20. It's
Really
like
hurts,
you have a window of time where you can do that, but then it starts to break down unless you're something crazy.
Sure.
But
Gotcha.
Rebecca's got a great aerobic capacity. in her. She really does, because she spikes up her training quickly.
She does, and she's getting a little bit faster, and every time she does something a little bit longer, something that she's never done before, she responds pretty well to it.
She does. She absorbs the training well.
She has to do something to get it out of her mind, and right now she's still stuck in her head, and she's got this whole thing now. It's just 2 more miles. Like this week was 2 more miles than last week, and that's working well for her. But just like when she was first getting started with this process, and thinking about the idea of doing a marathon and training in like days that she's going to have to go and run 20 plus, she was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to do this. This isn't going to work. Something's going to break. And then she just stopped, and she like took a deep breath. And you have been really good at consulting her, and she's like she's taking
been super strong though. So
one run at a time. It's just a little bit longer than it was last week, and she knows that the week prior that she acclimated to it just fine. And it's working for her. So
yeah.
It's a great thing about running. It's very tangible in how you can look at that. So
yeah. That's awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, let's call this thing a wrap. I've really got to go to the bathroom so bad right now. Too much coffee. So we're going to call it a day here. We thank you for listening. Check out the Patreon stuff at dialpodcast.com. Go check out Matt's YouTube channel. Where, Matt?
YouTube.com/MLegrand, MLEGRAND.
Yep. Check out Evan, Dialed Endurance Lab on all
here.
the socials.
Yeah.
And you guys can go check him out on Google. Get great reviews if you've come down here and used him before. That's all set up. And
there you go.
The social medias and the lab. Come down here and check out the lab.
All those things I'm slowly learning.
The lab is cool. Really
the lab is cool.
Yep.
Come check it out.
Bike stuff, give us a shout. Jake at DialedCycling.com. We'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you again for listening. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.